I'm gonna get to the next river video in a minute. Let's see. Oh, there's one. I just wanted to have a quick look and see about my dessert for today. We'll start this video at a different point. Since the river doesn't want to change, we'll change to make the video different. The real reason for this video, the second one for today, is actually not just to place a video, but to say something about the changes in the forecast and numbers. But we'll get to that. This is our second river pump station, and something that's changed here, because the level is predicted to be higher than previous levels, and we used some of these trees as anchors for the pumps. And at the higher level there's a risk of the pumps moving. We made a change. They put in these anchors to anchor the pumps to. There's another one over there. So when the water gets high, it gets around here where this tree is, and the flow of the stream, we calculated it goes up to 16 and probably more kilometers an hour, depending on where on the river it is. And those anchors are to physically anchor the pump so they don't float away. There is no other changes at this point, but I enjoy playing in the sand, so we're gonna have a look at it anyway, just because I want to. Not much has changed. It's about the same as it was this morning in my eyes. I think in my mind I pictured the rise much quicker, and the estimates in the day, the speed of flows, I worked on what I worked out last year with the flood, and that was at full flow. At this lower flow it moves slightly slower, so it will be about a day or two slower than I thought it would be to us for the first increase in flow. And that's the small one. That's the one that's not the big one that's currently happening. But the reason I'm making a second video today, I usually make one a day. The reason I'm making a second one is the data from each small river and each measuring station, that all comes together, that makes up the information that gives us the ability to try and estimate what's happening. It's a very complex thing, because you have measuring stations at high up in a river, lower in a river, sometimes where two smaller rivers meet, sometimes above that meeting point. Some of the flows you have to add together to get a total flow, some of it's duplicate of the same flow, just at different points in the river. Then you get the human element, which is two-part mostly. You have different shifts and different people working different times of day and updating the information, sometimes not updating. Sometimes you have big teams in big rivers with more people to update it. Smaller areas will have a single person who works. Then you have the second part of the human element, errors. Mistakes can be made, stuff not updated or data entered incorrectly, updates. Or we look at bloom-off. Bloom-off is now at 114%. And the next number to look at here is the outflow shown for bloom-off is 3000 cubic. And that doesn't correspond
to the volume that they use in the forecast. The forecast here show that today they will open another floodgate to raise the level to 2,600.
And they only opened the 2,600 today in the afternoon sometime. We've got a message that they will open it to 2,800, but anyway, that means that somewhere someone is using data that's showing us 3,000 cubic, when at another place they're using 2,400 cubic. You have the same problem at Garib and Van der Kloof.
Actual inflow goes up steeply, and then the forecast is flat and dropping. Now, unfortunately, the outflow forecast uses the inflow forecast and the level to calculate that outflow forecast. So,
where Van der Kloof is using a prediction of 1,600 cubic inflow, and then Garib is actually flowing 2,000 cubic. So those things didn't match up. The errors is usually quite small, and it's just about when they update it and when they make the new predictions, but that's not all of it. So I'm not going to give all the numbers now. I'll do a quick show, let's say just Van der Kloof and Bloemhof, to show what's happening and what's going to come down the Orange when the two streams, the two flows converge.
Let's start with the Bloemhof Dam. It's the one with the more variations in its predictions and figures. I just showed you earlier today, they showed 3,000 cubic outlet. Now all of a sudden it's 2,700. It still doesn't correspond to what they use in the forecast, but at least it's a lot closer. This release point here is 2,600 cubic. I'm going to work on that. This update was early this morning, 7:35 this morning. So this is older data, and this update was done at 4 o'clock today, 2 or 3 hours ago. So let's work with the 2,700, although it could be 2,600. The lower Vaal rivier is down to 200 cubic, so that's fairly constant. We'll take that. And then the upper Orange, the Van der Kloof Dam, still rising, and this is not good yet. This is still the same old. It is still early morning update, but let's work on that. It's not going to be too far out. That means that this predicted outflow peak is around 2,000 here, just under 2,000. Let's work on 1,900. So we have 1,900 plus 200 at rivier plus 2,600 at Bloemhof. That gives us 4,800. But that's where it becomes more complicated. If you look at where the rivers meet up, the Bloemhof Dam and the Van der Kloof Dam is not the same distance from this convergence point. So the peaks will differ, and the Vaal Dam is slightly more delayed, its peak, and the Riet River, the middle one, the peak of that is already passed. So it's difficult to say. I'm going to work on 4,500 as my estimate. The range of estimates is between 4,400 and 4,800, roughly. And that looks like the water that's going to come down the Orange River. Now, if you look at Katlani, that's just below where the two rivers meet up. That is now at 3,000. And Priska is now at 2,300. This 2,300 will have reached Uppington by tomorrow morning, or part of it. And another day, just more than a day, to reach Augrabies from that point. So we'll discuss Augrabies in a moment, because there's been a lot of questions about Augrabies.
So taking into account all of that, we are looking now at a bigger flood than we initially thought. It's still within the last big range of estimates. The range was 4,200 to 4,800. It went up and down between those two marks. It's looking now at about 4,500. It could have been worse, but as it showed, the Bloemhof and Van der Kloof peaks are both behind the rivier peak. So that's at least out of the packet. And hopefully those two peaks will not coincide too much, but they are actually. Depends on when they close floodgate on the Bloemhof. Anyways, that's the situation. It's going to be a big flood. Not all the way up to 2011 flood, but much bigger than the 2021 and 2022 January, February floods. So we'll have to see what happens, and I'm willing to put a small amount, but some money on it, that by tomorrow we'll see. Tomorrow morning we'll see a substantial raise in level. I'll do a quick one tomorrow, since we did a more in-depth one now, and I think then we're going to see every 6 to 12 hours you're going to see a substantial line, although it's a 2-day gap between this first smaller rise and the big rise. Before we go, one of the biggest questions that's popping up 4, 5, 6 times a day in the comments is when is Augrabies going to be, when is going to be the best time to look at Augrabies? And currently it looks like Sunday will be up to 2,500 cubics, and 2,500 cubics at Augrabies is a point where higher than that, then you have, they close the front viewing points because it becomes dangerous. The water starts overflowing those. So then you have to move back. You don't move back far, you still get very close to the falls, but up to 2,500 you can actually go to the most forward points. Probably 2,400 cubic, roughly around there. So Saturday, I'm quite sure you will still reach the front viewing points. Sunday will be a higher flow, but you might have to step back when it goes past 2,500 cubic. Then it will climb up to, looks like Wednesday, Thursday will be the peak of around 4,000, 4,500 cubic. It'll be there for a couple of days, so the next weekend it's still going to be high, around about 3,000, so it will be worth looking at it. And then the weekend after next weekend, it will still be high, it will still be around 2,500. I don't know, it could be more than that, it could be probably not less, it could be more than that, because you also have to look at the forecast for rain for the next week, 2 weeks. Now forecast is just a prediction again, could be wrong, but let's just look at the forecast.
Looking at the forecast, just a quick note. You might have seen on the internet in the past day or two something showing this, talking about rain, and indeed it has moved on by now. This is a thunderstorm prediction, and it's not necessarily the amount of rain falling. If you want to see the rainfall, you need to look at the accumulated rain. And this shows over the next 3 days not much of a rainfall. That color compared to the color here, it's about 10 millimeters forecast. Not much of it is in the catchment area. If you move up to 5 days, not much adds to it. And if you look now at the 10-day forecast, there is actually a lot more rain forecast, which means that in about 10 days from now, there's a good chance of getting a lot more rain, 30 to 40 millimeters around that point. So that could have an impact, but don't get confused by the thunderstorm forecast.
So, yeah, we could have more rain coming, but the dams have the capacity, the dams have the ability to recover their capacity to absorb the high peak flood, and hopefully they'll be able to do that in the next 10 days before we have more rains. So anyway, that's it for today, and tomorrow it should be higher for those who are watching the blue marks. Let's just get closer to the blue marks to remind everybody what they are about. The blue marks on that pipe is, the first one used was in the beginning 1 meter above water level. It's about 700 above water level now. Then 1 meter rise for each blue mark, and that top one is 5 meters from where the water level was before the first rise started. My prediction is that you will not be able to see any of the steel structure even at 3,500 cubic, and it's going to go above that, so it will lie somewhere on the wall of that pump station around 6 or even more meters above the original the river level. Anyways, long video. That was not the idea. But we'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Ons gaan ry, klim. Klim. Jy moet agter sit.